All right.
All right.
Hey.
What's up?
Hi, Darren.
Hey, Rachelle.
Um, Good to see you. Thanks for hopping on this call with me. Looking forward to talking a little bit about what's happening for educators. And I feel like you're it's really awesome of you to kind of use yourself as an example in a sense of like what's happening for a lot of people right now, who
Absolutely.
are in education and who are dealing with this kind of crazy ride of the pandemic and how that's impacting your class community and your teaching and so many things that you've invested in for years and how you really have to like just pivot right now and do something different to
Absolutely.
maintain the values that you've built into your community. So let's why don't you tell us just a little bit about you and your work at Point Loma High School?
Sure. It's such a pleasure to be talking with you. So thank you for having me. I've been at Point Loma since 2005. It was the first place that I was hired, and I feel very fortunate to be there and continue to, you know, be involved in the community. And it's a wonderful school. Over the years, I've taught all different sections of English: ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. My focus now is on a 12th grade writer's workshop class, but I also still teach two sections of ninth grade. And as far as I know, that's going to be my schedule, whatever that's going to look like for next year. Um, I've also taught Avid for a number of years, or I did. It's been a few years, but I taught Avid for maybe 4 or 5 years in that tenure. I headed up our journalism program for a little bit, which was wonderful because that's what I majored in college. And like I said, writer's workshop and creative writing is really like my focus, but I also try and take it out of the classroom and provide it as a model for the school, hosting different events and bringing in guests and making it available for students beyond just who are enrolled in my class. I'm also a fellow of the San Diego Area Writing Project, which I've been involved with since 2011. And I truly credit the Writing Project for giving me the foundation and the confidence um, to move, to be confident enough with what I felt was best for my students as far as teaching young people to be writers and having confidence in their voice and not being afraid to take chances with their writing. And I just have seen it be such an impactful tool as these students navigate high school years and themselves and their pasts, and especially with the seniors trying to like move forward as life moves them forward. Um, so student voice and social and emotional health have always been like a backbone in my classroom. So like hearing all of this talk now about how this needs to be a focus, I'm very much feel like I've been waving the flag, but now like I feel like it's more important than ever. Um, Social and emotional health, trauma, social justice, bringing in guests. I've had a guest series where I bring in like a guest almost every week. You've been a guest before, which was lovely. And I try and have a very broad spectrum so that students can see themselves in the guests that we bring in, from demographic to sexual orientation to gender to all different types of backgrounds. And it's just been a wonderful thing. I feel like it keeps things interesting for me as well. My degree is also in public relations. So part of me always has had this like planning sort of putting together events sort of drive. And I feel like this aspect of my classroom teaching has really allowed me to develop relationships beyond just, it allows me to be involved in the community, and I really appreciate that. Another thing that I've done for students over the years is really try and create third spaces beyond just the classroom. So whether they're sharing their work online, going to open mics in San Diego, and especially with the seniors, connecting them and helping them network with like-minded individuals. And I know when you came to visit, you had one or two young ladies who continue to keep in touch with you afterwards. So things like that are really important for me. Um,
Yeah, I can see, especially for like those older kids who are about to kind of step out of that school setting, having those connections in the community is so important because they're going to be exploring, their identity as adults and career pathways and, ways to be a grown up. And so having those connections outside are really great when they're making that transition.
Yeah, it's super valuable. And it's like, if they're not, they're busy, they're teenagers, they where and how, and many of them don't know how to do it yet. That's networking skill. So I think by bringing open-minded individuals into the classroom, and another thing, like this couldn't really have happened without the support of my administration and our former principal, Hans Becker, who really allowed me and gave me the freedom to be able to do that and model that. So that's been great. Um, support from, like I said, support from other educators and artists really drives my program. It gives a real sense of community. I always want my students, and this is something that I really want to concentrate as we move forward this year, the students have to have a stake in what they're learning. They have to feel like it matters and that there's an outcome that's going to make a difference in their life. And so when students can care and connect, then they are producing authentic work that is honest self-expression. It produces an environment of understanding and empathy and critical thinking, and most importantly, respect. So even students who aren't always wanting to share their most intimate writing or creative expressions, just being in that environment and being around strong people who are leading the way, it gives them, by the end of the school year, being in that environment empowers them just as much.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and those are all some of like the key factors of building a community. When I studied like restorative practice, they talk a lot about having this sort of like spaces for expression of feeling and like maximizing this like positive affect. And so having a space where we can be authentic and share our experiences in real time, and then also just like create something really positive together that builds social capital that kids want to keep coming back to. And I think that social capital is going to be so important as we transition into these online learning spaces, because why would kids want to show up
Uh-huh.
Zoom call every day when they're laying in their bed, you know?
No, I know.
So, yeah. So, you're describing this really rich classroom culture and involvement in the community and everything. Like before the pandemic hit, like when you think about like your best days, your favorite days, what was teaching like for you at those times?
I mean, for me, my classroom is like an extension of myself, and so I'm the kind of guy where it's all about the positivity. It's even on my toughest days, I'm standing at the door high fiving. Well, to see you, nice T-shirt. I like that band too. Great day today. I can't wait to hear what you have to share today. And literally doing this every single day to the point of where it's like, and I have them wait outside, so they're waiting to enter this space. It's not just a free for all where they walk in. They know they are entering a place that I've created with specific intentions for their success. So that's really what I miss the most. I miss the kids. I miss seeing them. I miss the physical aspect of a good high five.
Yeah.
And but what I'm most proud of is the longevity of this program, and that it's been going on for 5 or 6 years now. I've been able to have guests who are coming back as return guests. I have alumni who come back, which is really wonderful, because they tell the kids, I was sitting right there in your seat hearing the exact same things. And so just to see that there's actual outcome that, and that's what I think I'm kind of wondering about how it's going to look this year. And we can get more into that. I'm definitely wanting to keep the guest series, because I think it's going to keep things interesting, and it allows me to feel like I have partners in this process, which is why we're talking. Besides the classroom environment, what I'm most proud of before the pandemic is that we were able then to get the kids into our performing arts center and put on these performances. So if I had a guest who came in who I wanted to have more reach than just my, say, 100 plus kids, then I brought them into the Performing Arts Center, invited other English classes and history class, and whoever on campus was open to allowing their kids to come experience, a different outlook, a different perspective. I think that that's what's most important. And then by the end of the year, my students are the ones who are now sharing and performing for the other students. So it's almost like a passing of the baton. Again, not being able to congregate in these spaces, not knowing that I'm entering a year where my culminating event, where the kids finally land. We missed that in the spring. And and they would have been ready for it, but now it's like, how do I even begin to plant the seed of what I know becomes this beautiful, this beautiful thing.
Kind of a ritual or rite of passage or something
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at this point, I'll have kids who join the class and they're like, my brother had your class 4 years ago, or my cousin, or my best friend, and I've been waiting for this since ninth grade. And yeah, I mean, that makes me feel really good,
For sure.
and yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think has been the hardest thing with this pandemic and like the way that things have pivoted, like what's been lost and how has that affected you and your kids over the last few months?
The hardest thing for me was not seeing it come to fruition because, I know the end result, and like I know that it takes the whole year to build the trust, to put them in situations where they're developing teamwork, where they can give each other feedback that actually matters. The ups and downs of all of our lives intertwined.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, for them to get to a place in May and June where they finally can self-actualize that all of the work, all of the practice, all of the assignments actually led them to this place where it's bigger than the class. It's like you said, it's a rite of passage. It's a badge to wear as they exit Point Loma. It's a skill that they now have. I'll get students who will email me from freshman year of college or even a year or two into college and say, I've reused that assignment, or I've made it work for me in a different way. And it was so much more honest than what other kids were turning in. And, I don't quite take all of that into consideration, but I think being away from the classroom, I think I shared a photo from when you visited just recently, and your response to me was like, wow, like, you must really miss that. And I think it really made me step back and yeah, like sentimentally be like, I miss the space.
Yeah.
What else did I want to share with you is that just a sense of pride that like I see with the kids and a sense of like accomplishment. That's what I'm fearing this, how do I make that exist in this virtual world? How do you establish a community? Because yeah, I may have had their younger or their older brother or sister, but they don't really know me. They don't really know what I expect out of us as individuals. And it's about building trust. So you cannot expect a student to care about the classroom or their fellow classmates if they're not already like sold on that we're in this together.
Yeah. 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 So that's one of the jobs of educators now is going to be selling that or really, building that capital with kids and co-creating that space with them.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So what are your biggest concerns, it sounds like, is all of that. Like, how do I build a connection to the kids? How do I make it worth their while?
Yeah.
And how do I infuse that same sense of community and authenticity and pride and ownership in this new forum?
Yeah.
How do we do that? Anything else that you're concerned about for educators personally or professionally or for kids? And maybe zooming back just from your own classroom to a bigger view. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, you kind of said it. Like purpose and stake and trust are kind of my main. Like, how do we do that? I got to spend. I taught summer school, and I felt like I did a decent job in the spring by continuing to provide support and showing that I cared and and assignments that felt worthwhile. Um, but accountability is a big concern of mine as well. Attendance, accountability, parent support. Um, you know, to go and wrangle an email and phone call 100 plus kids all like continuously, like I want to nip that in the bud from the get-go. Like I want them to know like this is important right away.
Yeah.
But I think my main concerns are like why learn? Like some kids are like the world's falling apart right now. Like why do I even want to do this? Or what's my incentive? Are these grades going to count for college? So I want them to like get away from chasing grades and giving them a reason to invest intrinsically and emotionally so that they can so that they can like use this moment in time to be a better person, because we're going to look back on it as the pandemic or the pandemic years, and it's kind of like, well, what did you do and how did you grow from that experience? My other concerns are the schedule, workload, screen time, attendance, and behavior, but that's like those are tons of other conversations. Right.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then there's sort of like, as someone who comes from a therapy background, I'm also always thinking about like the mental health of,
Yes. Yeah.
educators and youth who are, you know, especially as we're in, and we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I just feel like I want to name it. We're also going into a politically very intense period of time. And, and there's all this social justice stuff that's up that I feel like a lot of young people are really invested in right now. And there's, there's kids who are isolated, and there's a lot of division in our country around like, what are we even supposed to do to protect ourselves from coronavirus? Is this a hoax? Is this for real? Or, there's just so much uncertainty. And so how do you craft these spaces that kids really want to show up in and can really be in all of that mess in real time with others, and express that in a way that helps them move through it successfully? Yeah.
I agree. I feel like, maybe like social media has been a place for people to like almost hide. And now it's like we're using it, but we have to be authentic. And so it's like we're really having to, I never used it to hide, but I just feel like when we're doing this one-on-one time, we want it to be meaningful. Nobody wants to feel like we're just taking up space,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're thinking about what it is, this thing that you're wanting to create, this experience for your students and a certain sense of satisfaction for yourself, what do you really want school to feel like in this new online forum, or sound like, or look like? Like, what are you imagining in the best case scenario?
For me, it's about strategic planning and partnership, and like making sure that I have some people in my corner who understand what it is that I'm trying to do, and also support, the support from my administration. I want to hold on to whatever worked in a traditional setting. However, like this is building the plane while flying it. It's like we're all first year teachers.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into it overconfident either. I want to know that things are going to work and things aren't. I want to be really honest with the kids in that way as well. I think the pivoting, which is the new buzzword, like I think it's going to be weekly. I think like maneuvering through a new schedule. I'm hoping we can settle in and enjoy the assignments and the opportunities that we're doing rather than chasing grades, to embrace the change, to thoughtfully connect to the whole being and like this, to our soul, to kind of get back to just, I don't know, something soulful, it's a good word. There needs to be a greater good to come out of this experience rather than just chalking it up to like a year of online learning, more. The true test is how we remain positive and humble and proud and motivated, I think, through the uncertainty of the experience. We're all being called to action, kids, parents. I'm a teacher and a parent. So it's not about intention and performance, but rather about intrinsic want to like be good and like lean into this predicament that we're all facing. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I really hear you, like looking for like the greater meaning and the greater purpose that can be created in the face of all of this. And I think that as adults we can role model to young people some really important social emotional skills in the middle of
Right,
all of this
right.
that they can really, practice and take with them. We're, we don't know what the future holds, and the more we're able to sort of like be imaginative and connected to community and handle these sorts of things together, the better our world will be, I think, ultimately.
I think, Rochelle, I think like that's why continuing the guest series is like such an important thing for me, because then at least my cohort of kids, I can't reach 2,000 kids, but my cohort, like, I think, I think by them meeting other adults who are different than myself and come from a variety of different backgrounds, have lived in different countries, have, raised in different sorts of homes, and seeing all of these individuals um, um, show what's the word I'm looking for? Just showing coping skills and
Yeah.
positive behaviors,
Yeah.
modeling that. I think like you put 25 or 30 adults, that's a lot. But I mean that's typically how many guests you have during a school year
Yeah.
in front of students. Then um, it's not just a talking head person.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I hope that. I,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. What do you kind of wish? I know when we chatted the other day, you were saying like you feel some frustration sometimes because probably about half of the educators that you're sometimes talking to feel very differently about prioritizing community and relationships and social emotional connections and purpose and belonging and
right.
all that stuff. And so, like, what are you wishing that other educators would kind of get on board with this year?
I think I'm lucky in the fact that I teach a creative writing course. And so some people I think would just brush that under the rug and go, oh, it's an elective, it doesn't whatever, right? But
Yeah.
it truly is therapy. It's like
Yeah.
it is an amazing thing that we do. So I'm not going to like do all of that. But if I was a science teacher or an AP English teacher or a history, I mean, I teach my ninth grade classes a little bit differently than I do my writer's workshop, but I'm the same person. So they're getting the same vibe because
Yeah.
it's hard to turn it on and off. But as you know, but I think like, yes, if I had to teach to an AP test and I had to hit specific benchmarks by certain weeks and I didn't have time to truly dilly dally or be like, and I know like asking a kid how they're doing emotionally is not dilly dallying, but um,
It feels that way sometimes in that
yeah,
context. Yeah.
in that yeah, I appreciate you saying that. But I just think like I think that yeah, I mean I work with some amazingly smart people who know their content extremely well, and I think like they are content teachers, and so I think there's just different teaching to a student versus teaching content. And I think both have their, I mean, I can think back on a couple of teachers who weren't the most personable people, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I can think about some other folks who really gave me an amazing experience, and it was because of what they did as teaching artists.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of research shows that, as long as kids have at least one adult on campus that they feel like they can really connect to and really be themselves around, and someone who really like, you know, expands their horizons and like
Mhm.
shifts power with them and challenges them to grow and those kinds of things, that can be really transformational for kids. But I think it's even cooler when we have way more than one, right? And
That's
I
the
think it's
idea. Yeah.
possible. And I think just having worked in a school setting for 20 years, seeing content teachers who did prioritize building community and building relationships, it may seem like a waste of time, but it actually saves a lot of time on the other end when it comes to engagement and discipline and completion of projects, and kids working together in groups, or the more that you're able to establish a sense of community at the onset, the easier the rest of the stuff is later. And so it was interesting. I was on a Zoom call yesterday. My son is at a middle school here in San Diego Unified School District, and they were talking about what their lesson plans are going to look like every day, and it was like 20 minutes of community building, 20 minutes of a mini lesson, and then 20 minutes of checking out. And I was like, these guys are just all they're going to be doing is relationship building and connecting to kids, at least at the middle school level, where my son is going. So it's kind of fun for those of us who have prioritized this for a long time to be like, hey, we have some things for you. And I know I didn't prep you on this question, but I was curious if you might be able to vocalize just for other people to hear, like, when you called me up to talk to me about what you were thinking, like, how were you hoping that I could help based on what you know about me and my work?
That's wonderful. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've known you for I think like less than a year now. I can't even remember how we first met, but there's just I see the work that you're doing and the people that you speak with, and the whole idea of, like, coming at it from like a nonprofit sort of, because for me, the classroom is where I love to be. But coming from a journalism public relations background, the idea of implementing bigger practices is something that I've always wanted to do. And I'm doing that in my classroom. But after a 16-year career, and after, like, is this what teaching is going to look like? And I'm going into this very, like, positive, but my idea was, like, how do I zoom out from this? And, like, what has my experience, what have I learned over these years? What do I now have to offer? And who do I trust, and who can I maybe potentially align myself with, so that I don't have to do it all on my own? Because I've tried to do it all on my own. Yeah. And it's hard when you have a young family and you are committed to 100% in the classroom. So just to speak with you and to hear how you want to bring teachers together. It's all about positivity. It's about community. Having you come into my classroom and then demonstrating that with my students, the project we did, and learning more about you. I was just kind of like, this is the right person in town. Like, I want to get behind whatever Rachelle's doing, whether, like, whether I'm just someone to offer some insight with an interview like this, or whether I'm able to really maybe elevate this into, like, a new aspect of my life and what I want to contribute to education as I move forward.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Because I'm really finding myself being in a space where I'm really wanting to work with people who really kind of want to blow up education and really want to reimagine this. Yeah. Want to reimagine, want to reinvent, and want to take advantage of this crisis. I mean, I think anytime there's a crisis, it's such an opportunity for change, and it's such a catalyst for a new paradigm to emerge. And so I'm really wanting to gather people around me and to support people who are doing that. And so for those of you that are watching this and who are kind of feeling that same kind of burning in your heart of, like, we've got to prioritize this stuff, I want to invite educators to kind of be a part of this community that I'm building. And my first step is offering a masterclass this coming Monday. And it's called Creating and Sustaining a Pandemic-Proof Community Culture Online. And, I was thinking about, what do I have to offer at this time? And I spent like 15 years practicing and studying community building, the art of community building in schools. And I was like, how can I give that to people? There's so much that's beyond our control right now with this pandemic, but I feel like we really can control the way that we show up and the way that we, the way that we interact with people and the way that we handle ourselves. And
Mhm.
so that's the stuff that we're going to be exploring in this masterclass. We're going to be looking at like 5 keys that I'm hoping are universal enough that folks at different layers of education can take and use in their setting. So if you're an administrator and you're really hoping to like unite and motivate your team for the year, or if you're a teacher that's, working in the classroom, or if you're an after school arts educator and you're like, how am I to get kids there? Or if you're in a community-based organization that's serving at-risk youth in some way or high-risk youth during this time, these are going to be principles that you can take and kind of use almost as like a checklist when you're working with your kids, like, or working with your team. And I know, Darren, you and I have been kind of exploring this idea of like, well, through this masterclass, do we start to kind of like cultivate a group of people that might want to come together regularly? And the beauty of online spaces is it doesn't have to just be San Diego people.
Right, right.
um, this could be people from all over who really want to have a community, a place to learn, a coach, and some that bigger picture and those bigger practices and values that can really guide through this challenging time. So I want to invite everybody who's watching, if you're an educator and any of those layers I talked about, I'd love to have you. I opened up an additional 10 spaces because I was running out. So we have almost 40 people enrolled already. And that, to me, it's encouraging that people are really thinking this way and wanting more of that. So yeah, I'll put
Yeah,
that in the
I,
comments after I, post this video. But yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I love the idea of like how we choose to show up, right? Because like you said, like with the idea of everything being so uncertain, and something I heard recently is that like we as individuals we face moments of uncertainty in our lives, crises or trauma, but we're very much going through those things together to reevaluate ourselves and how do we move forward in our own individual lives. But here we're being called to action as a society on how
Yeah.
to do that. And yeah, the idea of having to reinvent, rethink, or reimagine these systematic things that we've just taken for granted and put into place, and deep down inside we know don't always work and favor certain demographics and all kinds of unfairness. Well, now's the time to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And I think that my biggest thing is that we use this time to really be better. you
Mhm.
know I wish that other educators and people in general would see that this isn't about, or that this is about teaching like the whole student. Yes, we have to cover content, um,
Yeah.
but we really need to make sure that these kids are coming out of this year and out of this space thinking positively. Because if we have a whole generation coming out of this feeling distraught, um, then we're going to be, and not to take it down because that's really
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to avoid here, is giving people um, skills to know that no matter what adversity they face, with the right people in their corner, they are able to make it through.
Yeah. I love that you said that because, I've seen all these articles, or I've seen parents posting or different things like, how are we preparing our kids academically and things like that. And of course, those things are really important. But in terms of life skills,
Right.
and humans leaving school,
Yeah.
in and entering into the world, how are we preparing them to handle adversity and challenge? and
Mm-hmm.
and right now, I mean, we are hard pressed on every side culturally in the United States right now, and economically, and with health and mental health and
Mm-hmm.
social justice and all these different things. And so I feel like this is absolutely our opportunity to rise to the occasion and really learn with our kids
Yeah.
alongside of
Yeah.
them how to respond and what is the way to respond. um,
I mean, I think it would be a mistake to lead the kids on to for us to lead them to think that we have the answers.
right.
You know, I think the sense of vulnerability and letting them kind of, this idea that we are working through it all together.
Yeah.
I think that that's the gas in the tank. I think that that's really like what needs to
Yeah.
fuel us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about the master class. I can't wait to.
Good. Yeah. And it will be interactive. It's, I don't do sit and gets as a trainer. I do a lot of, to me, there's so much knowledge and experience in every room that we all come to together. And I like to learn experientially. So there's going to be a little talking, but then also just some modeling things, and also an opportunity for whoever shows up. We're going to break out into breakout sessions where people can bring a challenge that they're facing and have like a little team kind of help figure out what might be a way to move through it. So let's do it together. That's
How? Yeah, I'm on board. How do people sign up if they want to grab these last 10 spots?
So I'm going to, when I post this video, I'm going to post the link to the Eventbrite, but you can also just go to Eventbrite and search, creating a pandemic proof community culture, and it should pop up, or you can even just search artful leadership, and that'll come. But yeah, I'll post the link below. And I probably will do a redo later in the week and possibly another one, just because there's such a, a lot of interest right now, just to make sure we have I would love for there to be enough. I don't want to have a Zoom call where there's 50, 60 people on, but like where people really feel like they can connect with others and get the attention that they need in the space. So
I mean, people are looking at that sense of connection. I was part of a writing response group this summer that was people I didn't know. I just had a mutual friend kind of, and I look forward to it every week just to have a place to check in.
yeah.
And the reason I'm saying this is just because I know that a lot of teachers right now are doing lots of trainings, doing lots of, whether it's staff meetings, trying to really prep themselves. And so some people might be thinking like, like I don't have room or time for like another sort of deal. But I really think like prioritizing that, something to think about. And also just the sense of like, sometimes we don't really know how much we really need that community. And I think that, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, for me, I think that this is going to be a huge part of feeling not alone during this process. And to have folks to check in with that are not just on your campus or that are not your site, offers so many different perspectives. And like we've been talking about this whole time, it goes beyond the classroom. It really is like we're all trying to figure out the healthiest ways to impact our families and our work communities,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking, one of my best friends is a elementary teacher, and unfortunately in her district or at her school, they're not being encouraged to be creative at all, and there's a lot of limitations. So I think for people like that, having a space to have some co-conspirators of like,
Yes.
how do we conspire together to help the folks who are in these more rigid settings but still make real contact with kids, and make the teaching experience what we all came to do. Teachers didn't show up to teach to just blah. People are passionate about their subject matter and about working with youth, and so how do we keep that alive? So yeah, those are just some things that will be available to people to talk about. And after the masterclass, there will be an opportunity for people to do like a little free consultation with me. And then from there, we'll kind of figure out like, what do people need and want? And let's create some stuff that really meets the needs of educators right now.
I will say I feel very, blessed to be at Point Loma. We have our new principal, Mr. Kelly Lowry. He was our VP. He's now our principal. he is definitely offering us the space to be creative and to, even ideas of incorporating, yoga activities or breathing exercises and things that are very, not alternative to me, but maybe alternative to some other folks.
It's a daily practice over here.
Yeah. And for many of these kids, it's not. So I think, how nice would it be once or twice during the week to give them an opportunity to really, like we said, focus on the self and heal and be soulful with themselves and one another.
Yeah.
I know you agree with all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm all about it.
Yeah. You are.
Awesome.
Right on,
I feel like we could sit and chat about it forever, and we will another time. We'll keep the conversation going. And I really appreciate you reaching out and wanting to be a connector.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we can really create some great stuff for you and other educators this fall.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, I will see you on Monday, and I hope to see a lot of other wonderful people as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a great group.
All right. Well, I will see you then.
Okay, thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Rachelle. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.